the destruction of an energy facility, presidential staff assassination, kidnapping, the wrecking of trains, terrorist attacks, and other acts of violence against mass transportation systems, the destruction of national defense materials, premises, or utilities, offenses related to national defense materials, premises, or utilities, violence against maritime navigation, violence against maritime fixed platforms, homicides, and other violence against U.S. nationals outside of the U.S., the use of weapons of mass destruction, the acts of terrorism transcending national boundaries, the bombing of public places and facilities, the use of anti-aircraft missile systems, the use of radiological dispersal devices, harboring terrorists, providing material support to terrorists, providing material support to terrorist organizations, the financing of terrorism or torture, the sabotage of nuclear facilities or fuel, airline piracy, assault on a flight crew with a dangerous weapon, endangering human life by using explosive and incendiary devices on aircraft, homicide or attempted homicides on an aircraft, destruction of interstate gas or hazardous liquid pipeline facility. Section 813 included acts of terrorism as racketeering activity. Section 804 amends 18 U.S.C. 7, Special Maritime Territorial Jurisdiction of the United States defined, is a list of things or places that fall within the Special Maritime and Territorial Jurisdiction of the United States within the Title 18, the title of U.S.C. that deals with crime. It is amended so that when a crime is committed by or against a U.S. national, the premise of the United States diplomatic, consular, military, or other United States government missions or entities to foreign states are considered to be part of the aforesaid jurisdiction. This includes residences in foreign states, irrespective of ownership, used for purposes of these missions or entities, or used by United States personnel. It ends up by adding a clause saying that this paragraph does not trump any international agreement that it comes into conflict with, and that it does not apply to members of the armed forces who commit an offense outside the U.S. that would have resulted in a year or longer imprisonment had it been committed within the U.S. Under Section 814, a number of terms related to cyber terrorism were redefined. A protected computer was expanded to include a computer outside the United States that is used in a manner that affects interstate or foreign commerce or communication in the United States. Damage means any impairment to the integrity or availability of data, a program, a system, or information. Conviction now includes a conviction under the law of any state for a crime punishable by imprisonment for 1 year, for more than 1 year, where the crime involved the unauthorized access of a protected computer. Loss means any reasonable cost to any victim, including the cost of responding to an offense, conducting a damage assessment, and restoring the data, program, system, or information to its condition prior to the offense. Any revenue lost, cost incurred, or other consequential damages incurred because of the interruption of service. And person means any individual, firm, corporation, educational institution, financial institution, governmental entity, or legal or other entity. Here's how the Patriot Act covers cyber terrorism or cybersecurity. Several aspects of cyber terrorism are dealt with in Title 8 under Section 814 of the Patriot Act. It is clarified that punishments apply to those who either damage or gain unauthorized access to a protected computer, thus causes a person an aggregate loss greater than $5,000. Adversely affects someone's medical examination, diagnosis, or treatment, causes a person to be injured, causes a threat to public safety, health, or safety, or causes damage to a governmental computer that is used as a tool to administer justice, national defense, or national security. It is only through these specific actions that civil action may be taken against an offender. Section 814 also prohibits any extortion via protected computer, and not just extortion against a firm, association, educational institution, financial institution, government entity, or other legal entity. Punishments were expanded to include attempted illegal use or access of protected computers. The punishment for attempting to damage protected computers through the use of viruses or other software mechanisms is now imprisonment for not more than 10 years, while the punishment for unauthorized access and subsequent damage to a protected computer is now more than 5 years imprisonment. Should the offense occur a second time, the penalty increases to not more than 20 years imprisonment. The federal sentencing guidelines were amended to allow any individual convicted of computer fraud and abuse to be subjected to appropriate penalties with regard to any mandatory minimum term imprisonment. Section 816 specifies the development and support of cybersecurity forensic capabilities. It directs the Attorney General to establish regional computer forensic laboratories that have the capability of performing forensic examinations of intercepted computer evidence related to criminal activity and cyber terrorism, and that have the capability of training and educating federal, state, and local law enforcement personnel and prosecutors in computer crime, and to facilitate and promote the sharing of federal law enforcement expertise and information about the investigation, analysis, and prosecution of computer-related crime with state and local law enforcement personnel and prosecutors, including the use of multi-jurisdictional task forces. US $50 million was authorized to establish such labs. So let me repeat so that we may understand what you, the Homo sapien fiction, is doing in the world today. The Homo sapien animal in its current form as a person acting in the video game called Mother Earth is guilty of using terrorism by the use of the third person, second person, and first person in torturing children and committing acts of terrorism such as the September 11, 2001 attacks on American soil, for the purpose of mixing genes and the purpose of acquiring assets so that you can have more power to mix genes for the next generation. The Homo sapien is guilty. Dear slaves, you are guilty of terrorism against tortured children, including against the man answering to the call of Harj Gill. Terrorist strikes are premeditated acts of violence that often take months or even years to plan. This is an extract to follow from a document about the Terrorism Act passed by the nation of India in 2002. Indians from the nation of India residing in Canada and abroad have committed terrorist acts against the man answering to the call of Harj Gill, as Harj Gill was born in India and thus remains of Indian origin. You are guilty, dear slaves, guilty of terrorism. Chapter 1 states, this act may be called the Prevention of Terrorism Act 2002. It extends to the whole of India. Every person shall be liable to punishment under this act for every act or omission contrary to the provisions thereof, of which he is held guilty in India. Any person who commits an offense beyond India which is punishable under this act shall be dealt with according to the provisions of this act in the same manner as if such act had been committed in India. The provisions of this act apply also to citizens of India outside India, persons in the service of the government wherever they may be, and persons on ships, aircraft registered in India wherever they may be. Here are some definitions from the Indian Act. Proceeds of terrorism shall mean all kinds of properties which have been derived or obtained from commission of any terrorist act or have been acquired through funds traceable to a terrorist act, and shall include cash irrespective of person in whose name such proceeds are standing or in whose possession they are found. So this definition proceeds of terrorism. Let me repeat. It means all kinds of properties which have been derived or obtained from a commission of any terrorist act or have been acquired through funds traceable to a terrorist act, and shall include cash irrespective of person in whose name such proceeds are standing or in whose possession they are found. Property means property and assets of every description, whether corporeal or incorporeal, movable or immovable, tangible or intangible, and deeds and instruments evidencing title to or interest in such property or assets, and includes bank accounts. Chapter 2 covers punishment for and measures for dealing with terrorist activities. Punishment for terrorist acts: whoever, with intent to threaten the unity, integrity, security, sovereignty of India, or to strike terror in the people or any section of the people, does any act or thing by using bombs, dynamite, or other explosive substances, or inflammable substances, or firearms, or other lethal weapons, or poisons, or noxious gases, or other chemicals, or by any other substance, whether biological or otherwise, of a hazardous nature, or by any other means whatsoever, in any such a manner as to cause or likely to cause death of or injuries to any person or persons, of loss of or damage to or destruction of property or disruption of any supplies or services essential to the life of the community, or causes damage or destruction of any property or equipment used or intended to be used for the defense of India or in connection with any purposes of the government of India, any state government, or any of their agencies, or detains any person, threatens to kill or injure any such person in order to compel the government or any person to do or abstain from doing any act. Dear Indian slaves, did you not steal from me and use the funds to commit terrorism against me? Yes, you did, dear Indian slaves. You are guilty. Let me repeat, whoever commits a terrorist act shall, if such act has resulted in the death of any person, be punishable with death or imprisonment for life, shall also be liable to fine. In any other case, be punishable with imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 5 years, but which may extend to imprisonment for life, and shall also be liable to fine. Whoever conspires or attempts to commit or advocates, abets, advises, or incites, or knowingly facilitates the commission of a terrorist act or any act preparatory to a terrorist act shall be punished with imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 5 years, but which may extend to imprisonment for life, and shall also be liable to fine. Whoever voluntarily harbors or conceals or attempts to harbor or conceal any person knowing that such person is a terrorist shall be punishable with imprisonment for a term which shall not be less than 3 years, but which may extend to imprisonment for life, and shall also be liable to fine. Any person who is a member of the terrorist gang or terrorist organization which is involved in terroristic acts shall be punished with imprisonment for a term which may extend or imprisonment for life, or which with fine which may extend to rupees 10 lakh, or with both. Dear slaves, my real estate properties and certain business property stolen from me, and you have held them for your use and profit. You are terrorists. You are guilty. You are guilty of terrorism, of fraud, guilty of so many things. Whoever threatens any person who is a witness, or any other person in whom such witness may be interested with violence, or wrongfully restrains or confines a witness, or any other person in whom the witness may be interested, or does any other unlawful act with that said intent, shall be punished with imprisonment, which may extend to 3 years, and fine. Dear slaves, the Indo-Europeans of the past, or the Romans with royalty, with popes and leaders of the world, have created for you, the slaves, a world that is a video game called Mother Earth, in which you, the personas, are terrorists engaged in the torturing of your children and yourselves, so that you can use the first, second, third, and fourth person to help you determine the mixing of the genes for the benefit of a few, as well as to control the assets of the world. Your nations that you, the slaves, run or operate have been created laws with the aid of your legal profession to enslave and then to punish you. You have created terrorism laws to punish and control the very thing that you do naturally as fictions. You are insane. You are insane. You submit to the creation of the first, second, third, and fourth person, then you begin being voluntarily enslaved to create laws such as terrorism that punishes you for executing the fourth, third, second, and first person. Hence a self-inflicted injury, and thus you are all suicidal and also insane, as you have lost your sense of reality. Reality is a world where you can grasp the difference between your first, second, third, and fourth person, and to not be drawn into the video game, and then not to participate in orchestrations to inflict harm on another. Your legal profession is engaged in your further enslavement by the creation of legal fictions and in pulling and pushing on the strings that have been created since before Babylon, all used and fine-tuned since Babylon. Your religions are fictions, your philosophies are fiction, mostly just tales, deceptive stories. You are insane. Let me tell you some truth.